Question 1. The control framework reveals that a student has inadvertently received an email containing what appear to be actual questions from the upcoming Ambo University entrance exam. The student is aware that using such material would be a direct violation of the exam's integrity policy. The student has invested significant time and effort in preparing for the exam and is concerned about their performance. What is the most ethically sound course of action? Option A. Forward the email to a trusted friend who is also taking the exam, suggesting they both use the questions to ensure they pass. Option B. Use the leaked questions to prepare for the exam, rationalizing that it is a victimless act as the university will not know. Option C. Immediately delete the email and do not access or use any of the information contained within it, and proceed to take the exam based solely on their own preparation. Option D. Inform the university administration about the leaked questions, but proceed to study them to gain an advantage, believing the reporting action absolves them. The correct answer is C. Immediately delete the email and do not access or use any of the information contained within it, and proceed to take the exam based solely on their own preparation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it pits the immediate desire to secure a competitive advantage against the fundamental ethical obligation of academic integrity and fair competition. The pressure to perform well in the entrance exam, coupled with the temptation of readily available, albeit illicit, information, creates a significant ethical dilemma for the student. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising personal integrity or violating the established rules of the Ambo University entrance exam. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the examination rules and refraining from accessing any unauthorized materials. This upholds the principles of fairness, honesty, and meritocracy that are foundational to academic institutions. By choosing not to use the leaked questions, the student demonstrates respect for the examination process and their fellow candidates, ensuring that their admission is based on their own knowledge and abilities. This aligns with the ethical guidelines of academic institutions that prohibit cheating and uphold academic integrity. An incorrect approach would be to utilize the leaked questions. This action constitutes academic dishonesty, a serious ethical breach that undermines the credibility of the examination and the university. It violates the trust placed in students to compete fairly and ethically. Furthermore, it disrespects the efforts of other students who have prepared diligently and honestly. Such behavior can lead to severe consequences, including disqualification from the exam, denial of admission, and damage to the student's academic record and reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to report the leak to the university authorities, but still attempt to use the questions, believing that reporting somehow mitigates the offense. This is ethically unsound as it attempts to game the system. The act of accessing and intending to use leaked material is inherently wrong, regardless of subsequent reporting. The primary ethical duty is to not engage in the dishonest act in the first place. A professional decision-making process for similar situations involves several steps. First, recognize the ethical conflict. Second, identify the relevant rules and ethical principles. In this case, the Ambo University entrance, exam regulations, and general academic integrity principles. Third, evaluate the potential consequences of each course of action, both for oneself and for others. Fourth, choose the action that aligns with ethical principles and regulatory requirements, even if it is more difficult or less immediately rewarding. Finally, if unsure, seek guidance from a trusted advisor or authority figure within the institution. Question 2. The audit findings indicate that while the Ambo University entrance exam demonstrated efficiency in administration and a high pass rate for eligible candidates, there were also instances of procedural inconsistencies in question paper distribution and a statistically significant number of unanswered questions in a specific subject area, suggesting potential issues with clarity or relevance. In preparing the summary report for the university's academic board, which approach best adheres to the principles of regulatory compliance and academic integrity as stipulated by the Ambo University entrance exam framework. Option A. Present a summary that emphasizes the high pass rate and administrative efficiency, while briefly mentioning the unanswered questions as a minor anomaly without detailing the procedural inconsistencies in distribution. Option B. Request an extension to conduct a more in-depth investigation into the unanswered questions before submitting any report, thereby delaying the disclosure of all findings. Option C. Provide a comprehensive report detailing both the positive aspects, high pass rate, efficiency, and the identified weaknesses, procedural inconsistencies, unanswered questions, along with preliminary recommendations for addressing the latter. Option D. Focus the report entirely on the procedural inconsistencies and unanswered questions, suggesting a reevaluation of the entire examination process and omit any mention of the positive outcomes. The correct answer is A. Present a summary that emphasizes the high pass rate and administrative efficiency, while briefly mentioning the unanswered questions as a minor anomaly without detailing the procedural inconsistencies in distribution. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the student to navigate potential conflicts between academic integrity and the pressure to present a favorable outcome, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Ambo University entrance exam. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the integrity of the examination process, which is paramount for fair evaluation and the credibility of the university. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate improvements and actions that could be construed as misrepresentation. The correct approach involves a transparent and accurate reporting of the audit findings, including any identified weaknesses or areas for improvement, alongside positive outcomes. This upholds the principle of honesty and integrity, which are foundational ethical requirements in any academic or professional setting. Specifically, reporting all findings, even those that might reflect poorly on the process, aligns with the Ambo University entrance exam's guidelines on academic integrity and the ethical conduct expected of those involved in its administration or review. This approach ensures that stakeholders have a complete and unvarnished understanding of the examination's performance, enabling informed decision-making for future improvements. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on highlighting positive outcomes while omitting or downplaying negative findings constitutes a failure of transparency and honesty. This misrepresents the true state of the examination process and violates the ethical obligation to provide accurate information. Such an omission could lead to a false sense of security and prevent necessary corrective actions, ultimately undermining the fairness and validity of future entrance exams. Another incorrect approach, which involves fabricating or exaggerating positive results to mask deficiencies, is a direct violation of academic integrity and ethical conduct. This not only deceives stakeholders, but also actively undermines the purpose of the audit, which is to identify areas for genuine improvement. This action would be considered academic misconduct and could have severe repercussions for the individuals involved and the reputation of the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to truthfulness and accuracy. Professionals must first understand the specific guidelines and ethical codes governing the situation, in this case, the Ambo University entrance exam regulations. They should then objectively assess all available information, identifying both strengths and weaknesses. The decision should be to report findings in a manner that is comprehensive, factual, and unbiased, even if it means presenting less than ideal results. This involves prioritizing the integrity of the process and the trust of stakeholders over the desire for a superficially positive report. Question 3. Upon reviewing the application materials for the Ambo University entrance exam, an applicant discovers a discrepancy in their previously submitted academic transcript that could negatively impact their chances of admission. They are considering subtly altering the transcript to align with their perceived strengths or seeking information about the exam's content from unofficial sources to improve their performance. What is the most appropriate course of action for the applicant? Strictly adhering to the Ambo University entrance exam's regulatory framework. Option A. Ignore the discrepancy and hope that it goes unnoticed during the review process, focusing solely on preparing for the exam based on their current understanding. Option B. Immediately contact the Ambo University admissions office to explain the discrepancy and inquire about the process for submitting a corrected transcript or providing additional context. Option C. Attempt to obtain past exam papers or study materials from individuals who have previously taken the exam, believing this will provide an unfair but effective advantage. Option D. Discreetly modify the academic transcript to present a more favorable academic record before submitting it for the entrance exam. The correct answer is B. Immediately contact the Ambo University admissions office to explain the discrepancy and inquire about the process for submitting a corrected transcript or providing additional context. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The university entrance exam, governed by Ambo University's specific regulatory framework, mandates strict adherence to rules designed to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. Misrepresenting qualifications or attempting to gain an unfair advantage undermines the credibility of the admissions process and violates ethical principles of honesty and integrity expected of all university stakeholders. Correct approach involves the applicant being truthful and transparent about their academic record, even if it means acknowledging limitations or areas for improvement. This aligns with Ambo University's guidelines on admissions, which likely emphasize genuine academic merit and ethical conduct. By presenting an accurate representation of their qualifications and potentially seeking guidance on how to address any perceived weaknesses through legitimate means, e.g., supplementary courses, personal statements explaining circumstances, the applicant upholds the principles of academic honesty. This approach respects the integrity of the examination process and fosters a foundation of trust between the applicant and the university. An incorrect approach would be to falsify academic records or to seek unauthorized assistance. Falsifying records directly violates Ambo University's regulations on academic integrity and admissions, which would likely deem such actions grounds for immediate disqualification and potential future sanctions. Seeking unauthorized assistance, such as obtaining exam questions in advance or using prohibited aids during the exam, also contravenes the principles of fair assessment and the specific rules of the Ambo University entrance exam, leading to severe penalties. These actions demonstrate a lack of integrity and a disregard for the established rules, jeopardizing the applicant's chances of admission and their reputation. Professionals in admissions and academic oversight roles should employ a decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to established university regulations and ethical codes. This involves a thorough review of all submitted documentation against stated requirements, investigating any discrepancies with a focus on fairness and due process, and applying sanctions consistently and transparently when violations occur. For applicants, the decision-making process should center on understanding and respecting the rules, being honest in all representations, and seeking clarification or assistance through official channels when needed. Question 4. The evaluation methodology shows a significant number of applicants meeting the minimum academic threshold for the Ambo University entrance exam, yet the university has limited capacity. The admissions committee is considering how to select the final cohort, balancing academic merit with other institutional goals. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for a university entrance examination? Option A. Strictly adhere to the predefined evaluation criteria and ranking system outlined in the Ambo University entrance exam guidelines, admitting candidates in descending order of their scores until capacity is reached. Option B. Introduce a new, unannounced weighting system for certain extracurricular activities during the final selection phase to increase the perceived diversity of the incoming class. Option C. Prioritize applicants based on personal recommendations from influential faculty members, even if their scores are slightly below the top-ranked candidates. Option D. Focus on admitting a specific number of students from each geographical region, regardless of their performance relative to other applicants from different regions. Correct answer is A. Strictly adhere to the predefined evaluation criteria and ranking system outlined in the Ambo University entrance exam guidelines, admitting candidates in descending order of their scores until capacity is reached. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a critical juncture where the university's admissions committee must balance the stated academic goals with the practical realities of resource allocation and stakeholder expectations. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of fairness, transparency, and the ethical implications of decision-making when faced with competing priorities. The committee must not only adhere to the Ambo University entrance exam's regulatory framework, but also uphold the principles of equitable opportunity for all applicants. The correct approach involves a transparent and consistent application of the established evaluation criteria, ensuring that any deviations are justifiable and documented according to the university's internal guidelines and the spirit of the entrance exam regulations. This approach prioritizes fairness by treating all applicants equitably based on predefined standards, thereby maintaining the integrity of the admissions process. It aligns with the ethical imperative to avoid bias and to foster public trust in the university's selection procedures. The Ambo University entrance exam regulations likely emphasize meritocracy and equal opportunity, making adherence to established criteria paramount. An approach that prioritizes anecdotal evidence or personal recommendations over the defined evaluation methodology is ethically flawed. This introduces subjectivity and potential bias, undermining the fairness and transparency expected of a university entrance examination. Such a deviation could violate the spirit of the regulations by creating an uneven playing field, where factors outside the standardized assessment unduly influence outcomes. Another incorrect approach would be to arbitrarily adjust the evaluation criteria mid-process to accommodate a perceived need to increase diversity without a pre-established, transparent framework for doing so. While diversity is a laudable goal, its pursuit must be conducted within the bounds of the existing regulatory framework and university policies. Unilateral adjustments can lead to accusations of unfairness and may not be compliant with the principles of standardized assessment. Finally, an approach that focuses solely on meeting a predetermined quota without regard for the overall academic merit of candidates, as defined by the evaluation methodology, would also be problematic. This can lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, potentially impacting the academic standards of the university, and failing to uphold the principle of selecting the most suitable individuals based on the established criteria. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the Ambo University entrance exam regulations and the university's internal admissions policies. They should then critically assess the evaluation methodology to ensure its fairness and consistency. Any proposed changes or exceptions must be rigorously evaluated against these frameworks, with clear documentation and justification. Open communication with relevant stakeholders, within the bounds of confidentiality, can also be crucial in navigating complex decisions and maintaining trust. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates a correlation between applicants' participation in extracurricular activities and their performance on standardized test sections. A senior admissions officer is reviewing this data to inform the final admission decisions. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound approach? Option A. Investigating the nature of the extracurricular activities and their potential impact on test performance, considering this alongside other admission criteria. Option B. Prioritizing applicants with high extracurricular participation over those with slightly higher test scores, assuming the system indicates a stronger overall candidate. Option C. Adjusting admission scores based on the observed correlation to favor applicants with higher extracurricular participation. Option D. Disregarding the monitoring system's findings entirely, as extracurricular activities are not explicitly part of the core academic assessment. The correct answer is C. Adjusting admission scores based on the observed correlation to favor applicants with higher extracurricular participation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for misinterpreting data from a monitoring system, which could lead to incorrect decisions impacting student admissions and university resources. The core difficulty lies in distinguishing between genuine academic indicators and external factors that might influence performance, requiring a nuanced understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical considerations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the monitoring system's data in conjunction with established admission criteria, and a consideration of the holistic profile of each applicant. This aligns with the Ambo University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which emphasizes fair and equitable assessment of all candidates. Ethically, it upholds the principle of treating applicants with respect and ensuring that decisions are based on merit and relevant qualifications, not on potentially misleading correlations. An approach that solely relies on the monitoring system's output without further investigation would be professionally unacceptable. This is because it risks overlooking crucial contextual information about applicants, potentially leading to discriminatory outcomes or the rejection of qualified candidates. Such a failure would contravene the university's commitment to diversity and equal opportunity, as implicitly required by the spirit of a fair entrance examination. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the monitoring system's data entirely without a proper assessment of its validity and relevance. This could lead to a missed opportunity to identify potential issues or trends that might inform admission strategies or support services. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to utilize available tools for informed decision-making. A third incorrect approach would be to focus on superficial correlations identified by the system without understanding the underlying reasons. This could lead to biased decision-making, where applicants are judged based on factors unrelated to their academic potential or suitability for the university. This violates the principle of evidence-based decision-making and could result in unfair admissions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of all available data, a clear understanding of the relevant policies and ethical guidelines, and a commitment to fairness and transparency. Professionals should always seek to understand the context behind the data, consult with relevant stakeholders if necessary, and ensure that their decisions are justifiable and aligned with the institution's mission and values. Question 6. Examination of the data shows that the admissions office has requested a comprehensive list of all applicants for the upcoming academic year, including their personal contact details and academic performance metrics, for an immediate marketing campaign. The university's data privacy policy mandates that such sensitive information is only to be accessed and shared with explicit authorization and for clearly defined, approved purposes. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and compliant course of action for the data custodian? Option A. Verify the legitimacy of the request with the admissions office head, confirm the specific purpose of the marketing campaign, and then extract and provide only the minimum necessary data, ensuring it is anonymized or pseudonymized where possible, in accordance with university policy and relevant data protection guidelines. Option B. Provide a general overview of applicant demographics based on publicly available information, without accessing any specific applicant records. Option C. Inform the admissions office that the request cannot be fulfilled due to data privacy concerns and provide no alternative. Option D. Compile and immediately provide the requested raw data to the admissions office, as they are a key department and the request is time-sensitive. The correct answer is D. Compile and immediately provide the requested raw data to the admissions office, as they are a key department and the request is time-sensitive. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for enrollment data and the ethical obligation to protect student privacy and ensure data accuracy. The pressure to deliver results quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity and violate regulatory principles. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing demands. The correct approach involves a systematic and compliant process for data extraction and analysis. This includes clearly defining the scope of the data request, verifying the legitimacy of the requester and the purpose, and adhering strictly to Ambo University's established data privacy policies and any relevant Ethiopian data protection laws. This ensures that data is accessed and used only for authorized purposes, maintaining student confidentiality and the integrity of the information. The regulatory justification lies in upholding principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and lawful processing, which are fundamental to responsible data management and are likely enshrined in Ambo University's internal regulations and national data protection frameworks. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing and compiling raw student data without proper authorization or anonymization fails to uphold data privacy principles. This could lead to unauthorized disclosure of sensitive personal information, violating student confidentiality, and potentially contravening data protection laws. Another incorrect approach, which involves providing aggregated but potentially misleading statistics due to a lack of rigorous validation, undermines the reliability of the data and can lead to flawed decision-making by university administration. This failure to ensure data accuracy and validity is a significant ethical and professional lapse. A third incorrect approach, which involves delaying the provision of data indefinitely without clear communication or a defined process, demonstrates a lack of responsiveness and professional diligence, potentially hindering legitimate university operations. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the request. Clarify the exact data needed and its intended use. 2. Assessing legitimacy. Verify the authority of the requester and the purpose of the data. 3. Consulting policies. Review Ambo University's data privacy and access policies. 4. Identifying legal obligations. Be aware of any applicable Ethiopian data protection laws. 5. Implementing controls. Ensure data is accessed and handled in a secure and compliant manner, including anonymization or aggregation where appropriate. 6. Communicating transparently. Provide timely updates on progress and any challenges encountered. 7. Seeking guidance. If unsure, consult with the university's data protection officer or legal counsel. Question 7. Assessment of how an admissions officer should respond when a highly promising applicant for the Ambo University entrance exam, who has demonstrated strong academic potential, reveals significant financial hardship, and requests special consideration for admission, implying they may not be able to afford the application fees or sit for the exam without assistance. Option A. Advise the applicant on the established financial aid and scholarship application procedures available at Ambo University, while reiterating the importance of meeting the standard entrance exam requirements for admission consideration. Option B. Inform the applicant that financial hardship cannot be a factor in admission decisions, and that they must adhere strictly to the published application and examination fees. Option C. Suggest the applicant seek external funding sources independently, and inform them that the university cannot offer any form of fee waiver or special financial assistance for the entrance exam process. Option D. Grant the applicant provisional admission based on their expressed potential and financial need, deferring the entrance exam requirement until after enrollment. The correct answer is A. Advise the applicant on the established financial aid and scholarship application procedures available at Ambo University, while reiterating the importance of meeting the standard entrance exam requirements for admission consideration. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it pits the immediate need for financial assistance against the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the admissions process and the university's reputation. A student's financial hardship, while sympathetic, cannot be the sole determinant of admission, especially when it involves circumventing established procedures. The university entrance exam regulations, as per Ambo University's framework, prioritize merit and adherence to stated admission criteria. The correct approach involves upholding the established admission policies and regulations. This means that the applicant must meet the academic and procedural requirements of the Ambo University entrance exam, regardless of their financial situation. If the applicant is otherwise qualified and meets the admission standards, their financial need can be addressed through separate, established financial aid or scholarship programs, which are designed to support deserving students without compromising the integrity of the admissions process. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability inherent in academic institutions. An incorrect approach would be to grant admission based on the applicant's stated financial need, bypassing the standard examination and evaluation process. This would violate the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and undermine the credibility of the entrance exam. Could also set a dangerous precedent, leading to future pressures to admit students based on factors other than merit. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant outright without exploring any potential avenues for support. While upholding the rules is crucial, a compassionate institution should also consider how to assist students facing genuine hardship through legitimate channels, such as financial aid offices or scholarship committees. If the student meets the academic requirements, the professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a dilemma, a professional should first identify the core ethical principles at play: fairness, integrity, transparency. Then, they should consult the relevant regulations and policies to determine the prescribed course of action. If the situation presents a conflict between personal sympathy and institutional rules, the rules and ethical obligations to the institution and all applicants must take precedence. Exploring alternative, legitimate avenues for support, such as referring the student to the financial aid office, demonstrates a balanced and responsible approach. Question 8. Which approach would be most appropriate for the Ambo University Admissions Committee when reviewing an applicant's entrance examination submission that appears to contain plagiarized content, considering only the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specified for the Ambo University entrance exam? Option A. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected plagiarism by comparing the submitted work against known sources and university academic integrity policies, following the established procedures outlined in the Ambo University Entrance Exam Guidelines. Option B. Overlook the suspected plagiarism to avoid potential disputes and maintain a high volume of applications, focusing instead on other admission criteria. Option C. Consult general academic ethical guidelines from international educational bodies to determine the appropriate course of action. Option D. Immediately reject the applicant's submission and deny admission based on the initial suspicion of plagiarism, without further investigation. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected plagiarism by comparing the submitted work against known sources and university academic integrity policies, following the established procedures outlined in the Ambo University Entrance Exam Guidelines. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead students to seek unfair advantages, requiring the university to maintain robust ethical standards and clear guidelines for its examination processes. Careful judgment is required to uphold these standards, while ensuring a fair and transparent process for all applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the examination materials and the applicant's submission against established university policies and the specific regulations governing the Ambo University entrance exam. This approach prioritizes adherence to the defined academic and ethical framework. Specifically, it requires identifying any deviation from the expected standards of original work and academic honesty, as stipulated by Ambo University's academic integrity policy and the examination guidelines. This ensures that the assessment is based on the applicant's genuine understanding and abilities, thereby upholding the credibility of the entrance examination and the university's admission standards. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concern without proper investigation, potentially overlooking a breach of academic integrity. This fails to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure fair competition and could set a precedent for future misconduct. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the applicant without a clear, evidence-based finding of misconduct according to the established procedures. This could lead to an unfair outcome and potential reputational damage to the university if the applicant was indeed innocent. A third incorrect approach would be to consult external, non-university specific guidelines or general ethical principles without reference to the Ambo University entrance exam's specific regulatory framework. This violates the strict jurisdiction requirement and could lead to misapplication of standards. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific rules and regulations governing the examination. This involves consulting the Ambo University entrance exam's official guidelines, academic integrity policy, and any relevant internal procedures. The next step is to gather all relevant information and evidence pertaining to the suspected issue. This evidence should then be objectively assessed against the established criteria. If a potential violation is identified, the established disciplinary procedures of Ambo University must be followed, ensuring due process for the applicant. The final decision must be grounded in the university's specific regulatory framework and ethical commitments. Question 9. Implementation of strict examination protocols at Ambo University requires invigilators to identify and address any potential breaches of academic integrity during the entrance exam. An invigilator observes a student discreetly consulting a small, folded piece of paper concealed in their hand during a critical section of the exam. The student appears to be referencing this paper for answers. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator to take, strictly adhering to the Ambo University entrance exam regulations? Option A. Discreetly confiscate the paper and issue a verbal warning to the student, advising them to cease the action immediately and continue with the exam. Option B. Immediately stop the student from continuing the exam, confiscate the paper, and report the incident to the examination board for further investigation as per university policy. Option C. Allow the student to continue using the paper, but instruct them to do so more discreetly to avoid being noticed by other students. Option D. Ignore the student's action, assuming it was a minor lapse or a personal note unrelated to the exam content, to avoid disrupting other students. The correct answer is A. Discreetly confiscate the paper and issue a verbal warning to the student, advising them to cease the action immediately and continue with the exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams, especially for prestigious institutions like Ambo University, can lead some students to consider unethical shortcuts. The university's regulatory framework, as outlined in its entrance exam guidelines, is designed to ensure a level playing field and uphold the value of its degrees. Navigating this situation requires a strong understanding of these guidelines and a commitment to ethical conduct. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the Ambo University entrance exam regulations regarding academic honesty and the proper use of permitted materials. This means understanding that any attempt to gain an unfair advantage, such as using unauthorized notes, is a direct violation of the exam rules. The university's guidelines explicitly prohibit such actions, and adherence to these rules is paramount for maintaining the integrity of the examination process and the credibility of the institution. Upholding these standards ensures that all candidates are assessed on their own merit and knowledge. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with any form of unauthorized assistance, even if it appears minor or is done with the intention of helping them succeed. This directly contravenes the Ambo University entrance exam regulations that mandate a fair and unbiased assessment environment. Such actions would undermine the examination's validity and could lead to disciplinary action against both the student and the invigilator. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's actions, which would be a failure to uphold the invigilator's responsibility to ensure exam integrity and could be interpreted as tacit approval of cheating. This inaction also violates the spirit and letter of the exam regulations. The professional decision-making process for an invigilator in such a situation should involve immediate, calm, and decisive action in accordance with the Ambo University entrance exam regulations. This includes clearly identifying the violation, documenting the incident, and reporting it to the appropriate university authorities as stipulated in the exam guidelines. The invigilator must prioritize the integrity of the examination process above all else, ensuring that all candidates are treated fairly and that the rules are applied consistently. Question 10. The audit findings indicate that certain financial reporting processes within Ambo University may be susceptible to material misstatements due to inadequate controls. The university's finance department is considering how to respond to these findings, prioritizing efficiency and resource allocation. Which of the following approaches best addresses the identified risks in a manner consistent with sound financial stewardship and governance principles? Option A. Address only those risks that are easily quantifiable and have a clear, immediate financial impact, deferring the assessment of more complex or qualitative risks. Option B. Focus solely on immediate cost-saving initiatives within the finance department to free up resources, assuming that improved efficiency will inherently reduce risk. Option C. Downplay the significance of the audit findings, attributing them to minor procedural oversights that do not warrant significant intervention. Option D. Implement a comprehensive risk assessment framework to identify, evaluate, and mitigate all potential financial reporting risks, followed by the development of targeted control enhancements. Correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive risk assessment framework to identify, evaluate, and mitigate all potential financial reporting risks, followed by the development of targeted control enhancements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the audit findings suggest a potential breakdown in the university's internal controls related to financial reporting. The pressure to present a favorable financial position, coupled with potential resource constraints or a lack of expertise in risk assessment, can lead to overlooking or misinterpreting critical risks. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the identified risks are addressed appropriately and that the university's financial integrity is maintained, adhering to the principles of good governance and regulatory compliance expected of an educational institution. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive risk assessment process. This entails identifying all potential risks that could impact the accuracy and reliability of financial statements evaluating their likelihood and potential impact, and then developing appropriate mitigation strategies. This aligns with the fundamental principles of internal control and financial stewardship, which are implicitly expected within the regulatory framework governing university operations, even if not explicitly detailed in a specific Ambo University entrance exam document. The focus is on proactive identification and management of financial risks to prevent misstatements and ensure transparency. An approach that focuses solely on immediate cost-saving measures without a thorough risk assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the potential financial consequences of unaddressed risks, which could lead to significant financial misstatements, reputational damage, and potential regulatory scrutiny. It prioritizes short-term financial gains over long-term financial health and compliance. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the audit findings as minor or inconsequential without proper investigation. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to appreciate the interconnectedness of financial reporting processes. Such an oversight can allow underlying control weaknesses to persist, increasing the likelihood of more significant issues arising in the future. It neglects the professional responsibility to address audit recommendations seriously. Finally, an approach that involves selectively addressing only those risks that are easily quantifiable or immediately apparent, while ignoring qualitative or less obvious risks, is also professionally flawed. This selective approach can lead to a skewed understanding of the overall risk landscape, leaving the university vulnerable to unforeseen events or complex financial issues. A comprehensive risk assessment requires considering all types of risks, not just those that are most convenient to address. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Acknowledging and thoroughly understanding the audit findings. 2. Initiating a comprehensive risk assessment process that considers all potential financial reporting risks. 3. Prioritizing risks based on their likelihood and potential impact. 4. Developing and implementing robust mitigation strategies. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating the risk assessment and mitigation plans. 6. Ensuring that all actions are aligned with the university's governance framework and any applicable regulatory guidelines. Question 11. During the evaluation of an applicant's submission for the Ambo University entrance exam, it is discovered that the applicant extensively utilized study guides and online resources to prepare for the essay portion. The applicant has not explicitly cited these resources within their submitted essay. What is the most ethically and regulatorily compliant approach for the applicant to take regarding their use of these preparatory materials? Option A. The applicant should assume that the use of preparatory materials is implicitly permitted and no acknowledgement is necessary, as the exam assesses current knowledge. Option B. The applicant should contact the university and request an extension to rewrite the essay, claiming they did not fully understand the requirements regarding the use of external study aids. Option C. The applicant should remove any content from their essay that they believe might have been directly influenced by the preparatory materials to ensure it appears entirely original. Option D. The applicant should acknowledge the use of study guides and online resources in a separate addendum to their submission, explaining how these materials aided their understanding and preparation for the essay. The correct answer is D. The applicant should acknowledge the use of study guides and online resources in a separate addendum to their submission, explaining how these materials aided their understanding and preparation for the essay. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the ethical principles and regulatory expectations governing academic integrity within the context of a university entrance examination. The applicant must navigate potential conflicts between the desire to present their best work and the obligation to adhere to the examination's rules. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate preparation and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves acknowledging the source of information used in preparation for the exam, even if that preparation occurred outside the formal examination period. This aligns with the principles of academic honesty and transparency, which are fundamental to the integrity of any educational institution, including Ambo University. By citing or referencing the materials consulted, the applicant demonstrates an understanding that knowledge acquisition should be attributed appropriately, preventing any misrepresentation of their own original thought or learning process. This upholds the spirit of the entrance exam, which is to assess the applicant's current knowledge and aptitude, not to reward unacknowledged reliance on external resources. An incorrect approach that involves submitting work that directly mirrors or heavily relies on specific preparatory materials without acknowledgement constitutes academic dishonesty. This fails to meet the ethical standard of originality and can be interpreted as plagiarism or cheating, violating the core principles of academic integrity. Another incorrect approach, which is to claim complete originality for all ideas without any reference to preparatory study, is also problematic as it misrepresents the learning process and can be seen as an attempt to deceive the examiners about the extent of the applicant's independent learning. Finally, an approach that involves seeking or using unauthorized assistance during the preparation phase, even if not directly during the exam itself, would also be a violation of academic integrity, as it suggests an unfair advantage gained through illicit means. Professionals should approach such situations by prioritizing honesty and transparency. This involves a clear understanding of the rules and ethical guidelines governing the assessment process. When in doubt about what constitutes acceptable preparation or how to properly attribute sources, seeking clarification from the examination administrators is the most prudent course of action. The decision-making process should be guided by a commitment to upholding academic integrity and demonstrating genuine understanding, rather than seeking to circumvent rules or misrepresent one's capabilities. Question 12. Stakeholder feedback indicates a need to review and potentially revise the Ambo University entrance exam process to enhance its efficiency and relevance. A proposal has been put forward to streamline certain aspects of the exam administration and content. Which of the following approaches to conducting a risk assessment for these proposed changes best aligns with the principles of responsible institutional governance and ethical practice for Ambo University? Option A. Undertake a rapid risk assessment based on the opinions of a small, select group of senior administrators, aiming to implement changes quickly to demonstrate responsiveness to feedback. Option B. Implement a risk assessment process that involves broad consultation with students, faculty, and administrative staff, alongside a thorough analysis of potential impacts on academic integrity, accessibility, and the university's reputation, before recommending any changes. Option C. Focus the risk assessment solely on the technical aspects of exam delivery and scoring, assuming that any changes will inherently improve the process without needing to evaluate broader consequences. Option D. Conduct a risk assessment that prioritizes identifying potential cost savings and operational efficiencies, with minimal consideration for the impact on exam fairness or academic rigor. Correct answer is D. Conduct a risk assessment that prioritizes identifying potential cost savings and operational efficiencies, with minimal consideration for the impact on exam fairness or academic rigor. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations to its stakeholders, particularly students and faculty, while adhering to the Ambo University entrance exam's regulatory framework. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying risk assessment principles in a way that is both effective for institutional improvement and fair to the exam's participants. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that considers the potential impact of proposed changes on student access, academic integrity, and the overall reputation of Ambo University. This approach is right because it aligns with the principles of good governance and responsible institutional management, which are implicitly expected within any educational institution's operational guidelines. Specifically, it prioritizes a thorough understanding of potential negative outcomes before implementing changes, ensuring that any adjustments to the entrance exam are data-driven and considerate of all affected parties. This proactive and holistic view of risk is essential for maintaining stakeholder trust and ensuring the long-term viability and fairness of the entrance process. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on exam quality or accessibility would be ethically flawed. It would violate the implicit duty of care owed to prospective students and could lead to a perception of unfairness, potentially damaging the university's reputation. Similarly, an approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thoroughness, neglecting to consult relevant stakeholders or conduct adequate impact analysis, would be professionally unsound. This haste could overlook critical risks, leading to unintended negative consequences that are more costly to rectify later. Furthermore, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal biases rather than systematic data collection and analysis, would fail to meet the standards of objective risk assessment expected in an academic setting. Such an approach is susceptible to errors in judgment and can perpetuate inequities. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making framework. This begins with clearly defining the objectives of the risk assessment. Next, they should identify potential risks associated with proposed changes to the entrance exam, considering both internal and external factors. This should be followed by an analysis of the likelihood and impact of each identified risk. Crucially, the framework must include a phase for evaluating and selecting appropriate risk mitigation strategies, prioritizing those that are most effective and ethically sound. Finally, continuous monitoring and review of the implemented strategies are essential to ensure ongoing effectiveness and compliance with the university's regulatory framework and ethical standards. Question 13. Performance analysis shows a significant number of applicants to Ambo University are expressing anxiety about the upcoming entrance examination, with one applicant directly approaching a university staff member for tips on what specific topics will be heavily weighted to better focus their last-minute preparation. Option A. Provide the applicant with a list of topics that have historically appeared frequently on the exam, explaining that this is based on past trends and not direct information about the current exam. Option B. Offer to share some practice questions that are similar in style to those expected on the exam, assuring the applicant that these are not actual exam questions but are designed to help them understand the format. Option C. Politely inform the applicant that providing specific details about exam content is against university policy and direct them to the official study materials available on the university website for general preparation guidance. Option D. Advise the applicant to focus on broad subject areas rather than specific topics, suggesting they review all material comprehensively without any indication of potential weighting. The correct answer is C. Politely inform the applicant that providing specific details about exam content is against university policy and direct them to the official study materials available on the university website for general preparation guidance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic needs and the university's established academic integrity policies. The pressure to perform well, especially in a high-stakes entrance exam, can lead students to seek shortcuts. The university's regulatory framework, as embodied in the Ambo University Entrance Exam Guidelines, prioritizes fair assessment and the prevention of academic misconduct. The correct approach involves recognizing the student's request as a potential violation of academic integrity and responding by upholding the established examination rules. This aligns with the university's commitment to a fair and equitable assessment process, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit. The regulatory framework for the Ambo University entrance exam implicitly or explicitly prohibits any form of external assistance or unauthorized materials during the examination. Providing the student with the requested information would directly contravene these principles, undermining the validity of the exam and the university's admission standards. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with any information related to the exam content, even if framed as guidance or preparation tips. This would constitute a breach of academic integrity, as it offers an unfair advantage to one student over others. Such an action directly violates the spirit and letter of examination regulations designed to ensure a level playing field. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request without any response. While not actively providing prohibited information, this fails to address a potential ethical lapse and misses an opportunity to reinforce the importance of academic integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to offer to help the student in a way that circumvents the exam's purpose, such as suggesting they focus on specific topics without providing direct answers. This still creates an uneven playing field and can be interpreted as tacit encouragement of unfair practices. The professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve 1. Identifying the core issue, a student seeking unauthorized assistance. 2. Consulting the relevant university regulations. Specifically, the Ambo University Entrance Exam Guidelines on Academic Integrity and Prohibited Conduct. 3. Responding clearly and firmly, upholding the regulations, explaining that such assistance cannot be provided due to examination rules. 4. Offering appropriate, authorized support, directing the student to legitimate resources for exam preparation, such as official study guides or academic advising, if available and permissible. Question 14. Benchmark analysis indicates that a prospective student preparing for the Ambo University entrance exam approaches you for assistance, expressing significant anxiety about their preparedness. They specifically ask for help with practice questions that are very similar to those they expect to encounter on the exam, hinting that they would appreciate direct guidance on how to solve them. Considering the ethical guidelines and the importance of fair assessment for the Ambo University entrance exam, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Share anonymized past exam papers with the student, advising them to study the types of questions asked. Option B. Provide the student with general study materials and recommend they utilize the university's academic support services for practice and guidance. Option C. Reassure the student that the exam is not overly difficult and that they should not worry too much about extensive preparation. Option D. Offer to work through specific practice questions with the student, providing them with the exact solutions and explanations for each step. The correct answer is B. Provide the student with general study materials and recommend they utilize the university's academic support services for practice and guidance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for academic assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to succeed in entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, but upholding the principles of honesty and original work is paramount for the university's reputation and the validity of its admissions process. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the enforcement of ethical standards. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical boundaries and prioritizing academic integrity. This means refraining from providing direct answers or solutions to exam questions, as this would constitute academic misconduct and undermine the fairness of the entrance exam. Instead, the focus should be on guiding the student towards resources that promote independent learning and understanding of the subject matter, such as suggesting study materials, practice exercises, or academic support services offered by the university. This aligns with the Ambo University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which implicitly emphasizes fair competition and the assessment of a student's own knowledge and abilities. Providing direct answers to exam questions, even with the intention of helping a struggling student, represents a significant ethical failure, violates the principle of academic honesty, and constitutes academic misconduct, which is typically addressed by university regulations and codes of conduct. This action would not only compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, but also set a precedent for unethical behavior. Offering to share past exam papers without proper authorization or context also falls into this category, as it can lead to unfair advantages and does not assess the student's current understanding. Misrepresenting the difficulty of the exam or downplaying the importance of original work also undermines the university's assessment standards and the student's development. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to institutional policies. This involves 1. Identifying the core ethical dilemma, e.g., helping a student versus upholding academic integrity. 2. Consulting relevant university regulations and guidelines for the Ambo University entrance exam. 3. Considering the potential consequences of each action on the student, the university, and the integrity of the assessment process. 4. Choosing the course of action that best upholds ethical principles and institutional standards, which in this case involves guiding the student towards legitimate learning resources rather than compromising the exam's integrity. Question 15. Governance review demonstrates that the admissions office is facing significant pressure to meet its enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. During the review of a promising applicant's file, it is discovered that one of the required academic transcripts appears to have a minor discrepancy in the grading scale notation compared to the university's standard format, though the overall academic performance indicated is strong. The admissions officer is aware of the enrollment pressure, but also of the university's strict policy on verifying all submitted documentation. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer in this situation? Option A. Reject the application outright due to the non-conforming documentation, to maintain strict adherence to policy. Option B. Immediately contact the applicant to request a corrected or officially verified transcript, while noting the discrepancy and the steps taken to resolve it. Option C. Accept the application based on the strong academic performance shown, assuming the discrepancy is a minor administrative oversight by the previous institution. Option D. Forward the application for review without addressing the transcript discrepancy, trusting that the admissions committee will identify and handle it. The correct answer is B. Immediately contact the applicant to request a corrected or officially verified transcript, while noting the discrepancy and the steps taken to resolve it. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student admissions under pressure. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to overlook or downplay potential issues, but adherence to established admission policies and ethical standards is paramount. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the process remains fair, transparent, and compliant with Ambo University's internal regulations and any overarching national educational guidelines. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the applicant's documentation against the stated admission criteria, seeking clarification from the applicant where necessary, and escalating any discrepancies or potential policy violations to the appropriate admissions committee or designated authority. This upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring all applicants are assessed on the same basis and that the university's admission standards are maintained. It aligns with the ethical obligation to act with integrity and to ensure that admissions decisions are based on merit and adherence to established rules, preventing any perception of favorability or bias. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the discrepancy due to enrollment pressure would violate the university's admission policies and compromise the integrity of the admissions process. This could lead to admitting unqualified students, undermining the academic reputation of Ambo University, and potentially creating future academic support challenges. It also sets a dangerous precedent for future admission cycles. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately rejecting the application without seeking clarification, might be overly rigid and fail to account for potential administrative errors or misunderstandings on the applicant's part. While adherence to policy is crucial, a degree of due diligence in seeking clarification before final rejection is often a more professional and fair course of action, provided it does not unduly delay the process or compromise the integrity of the assessment. A further incorrect approach, such as accepting the application based on a verbal assurance from the applicant without verifying the documentation, would be a significant breach of procedural integrity. Admissions decisions must be based on verifiable evidence submitted through the official channels. Relying on informal assurances undermines the entire documentation-based admissions framework and opens the door to fraud and misrepresentation. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing all relevant university admission regulations and guidelines. 2. Critically evaluating all submitted documentation against these criteria. 3. Identifying any discrepancies or areas requiring further information. 4. Proactively seeking clarification from applicants through official channels when necessary. 5. Escalating complex or potentially policy-violating cases to the appropriate decision-making body. 6. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made throughout the process. Question 16. System analysis indicates a proctor at the Ambo University entrance examination observed a candidate appearing to use unauthorized notes concealed within their clothing. The proctor has a limited window before the examination, concludes and needs to act decisively, yet appropriately according to Ambo University's entrance exam regulations. Which of the following actions best aligns with the established regulatory framework for handling such an incident? Option A. Approach the candidate privately during the examination, question them about the observed behavior, and if they admit to using notes, confiscate the notes and their exam paper. Option B. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination materials and escort them out of the examination hall, informing them they are disqualified pending further review. Option C. Discreetly observe the candidate for the remainder of the examination to gather more definitive proof, making a note of the observation for a post-examination report. Option D. Document the observation thoroughly, including the time, location, and specific details of the suspected unauthorized notes, and submit a formal report to the examination committee for their investigation and decision according to university policy. The correct answer is B. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination materials and escort them out of the examination hall, informing them they are disqualified pending further review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of academic integrity within the context of Ambo University's entrance examination framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the university's commitment to fair and equitable assessment with the need to address potential breaches of academic honesty without overstepping established procedures or unfairly disadvantaging candidates. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is proportionate, evidence-based, and aligned with Ambo University's specific regulations for entrance exams. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to Ambo University's established procedures for handling examination irregularities. This means gathering all available evidence, providing the candidate with an opportunity to respond, and then making a decision based on the findings and the university's specific rules regarding academic integrity during entrance exams. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds principles of due process, fairness, and transparency, ensuring that decisions are not arbitrary but are grounded in established university policy and evidence. It respects the rights of the candidate while safeguarding the integrity of the examination process. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without investigation fails to adhere to the principles of natural justice and due process, which are implicitly or explicitly part of most university regulatory frameworks. It assumes guilt without providing the candidate an opportunity to present their side of the story, a fundamental ethical and procedural failing. Another incorrect approach, that of ignoring the allegation due to the pressure of time, compromises the integrity of the examination process and creates an unfair advantage for the candidate in question, violating the university's commitment to a level playing field. This also undermines the credibility of the entrance exam itself. Finally, an approach that involves seeking external advice without consulting Ambo University's internal examination regulations risks misinterpreting or misapplying relevant rules, potentially leading to procedural errors or unfair outcomes. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the relevant university regulations and examination policies. This involves identifying the specific rules pertaining to academic misconduct and the procedures for handling such allegations. Next, one must objectively assess the evidence presented, ensuring it is credible and directly relates to the alleged breach. Crucially, the process must include affording the candidate a fair hearing, allowing them to present their defense. Finally, any decision made must be consistent with the university's established policies and applied equitably to all candidates. Question 17. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for significant financial contribution from a new educational consultancy firm seeking to partner with Ambo University. This firm proposes to offer preparatory courses for the Ambo University entrance exam and to sponsor university events. However, preliminary checks reveal that the firm's marketing materials for similar preparatory courses at other institutions have been flagged for potentially misleading claims about guaranteed admission rates. Which of the following approaches best aligns with Ambo University's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for partnerships? Option A. Decline the partnership due to the initial concerns about misleading marketing, without further investigation, to avoid any potential association with questionable practices. Option B. Conduct a thorough due diligence investigation into the consultancy's past marketing practices and their adherence to ethical advertising standards, and ensure their proposed preparatory courses and sponsorship activities do not compromise the integrity of the Ambo University entrance exam or the university's admission policies. Option C. Accept the partnership offer immediately to secure the financial resources, assuming the consultancy will operate ethically once associated with Ambo University. Option D. Proceed with the partnership, focusing on the financial benefits and requiring the consultancy to adjust its marketing materials for Ambo University's specific context. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the partnership, focusing on the financial benefits and requiring the consultancy to adjust its marketing materials for Ambo University's specific context. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with its long-term academic integrity and reputation. The pressure to secure funding quickly can lead to overlooking potential ethical and regulatory breaches. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any partnership aligns with the university's mission and adheres to Ambo University's entrance exam regulatory framework, which prioritizes student welfare and fair admission processes. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that scrutinizes the potential partner's alignment with Ambo University's ethical standards and regulatory compliance, particularly concerning any influence on the entrance exam process or student admissions. This approach is right because it proactively identifies and mitigates risks to the university's reputation and the integrity of its admissions. Specifically, Ambo University's regulatory framework emphasizes transparency and ethical conduct in all university operations, including partnerships. Engaging in a partnership without verifying the potential partner's compliance with ethical advertising standards and their commitment to fair student recruitment practices would violate these principles. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize the immediate financial benefit without adequate investigation. This fails to uphold the university's responsibility to its students and the broader academic community. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with the partnership based solely on the partner's reputation, without independently verifying their practices against Ambo University's specific guidelines for external collaborations. This overlooks the potential for reputational damage and regulatory noncompliance that could arise from the partner's undisclosed activities. A further incorrect approach is to assume that any partnership that offers financial benefits is inherently acceptable, disregarding the potential for conflicts of interest or the erosion of academic standards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all potential stakeholders and their interests. This is followed by a comprehensive risk assessment that considers financial, reputational, ethical, and regulatory implications. The framework then involves evaluating potential partners against established university policies and relevant regulatory requirements, seeking expert advice where necessary, and documenting the entire decision-making process. Question 18. Governance review demonstrates that allegations of potential bias in the creation of Ambo University's entrance examination questions have been raised by an anonymous source, citing concerns about the specific content and its perceived alignment with certain preparatory courses. The university's examination committee is tasked with addressing these allegations. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Strictly adhering to Ambo University's established examination policies and ethical conduct guidelines. Option A. Disregard the anonymous allegations as unsubstantiated and proceed with the examination as scheduled, without any further inquiry. Option B. Immediately issue a formal reprimand to the faculty members involved in the question development process based on the anonymous allegations and require them to revise the examination. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive, independent review of the examination materials and the alleged irregularities, following established university protocols for investigating examination integrity concerns, and document all findings and decisions. Option D. Convene an informal meeting between the faculty members responsible for the examination questions and their immediate department head to discuss the allegations and seek a verbal assurance of impartiality. The correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive, independent review of the examination materials and the alleged irregularities, following established university protocols for investigating examination integrity concerns, and document all findings and decisions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise fair assessment. The university entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any perception of bias or unfairness can erode public trust and the institution's reputation. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of a fair and objective examination process. The correct approach involves a thorough, independent review of the examination materials and the alleged irregularities, adhering strictly to Ambo University's established examination policies and ethical guidelines. This approach prioritizes evidence-based decision-making and ensures that any actions taken are consistent with the university's commitment to academic fairness and transparency. It involves a systematic process of investigation, documentation, and impartial evaluation, which is ethically mandated to protect the integrity of the examination. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disciplinary action against the faculty member without a proper investigation fails to uphold due process and could lead to an unjust outcome. This bypasses the university's established procedures for handling such allegations and risks damaging an individual's reputation without sufficient evidence. It also neglects the ethical obligation to investigate thoroughly before making judgments. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the allegations outright without any form of review, demonstrates a disregard for potential systemic issues or individual misconduct. This approach fails to address the concerns raised, potentially allowing for future breaches of examination integrity and undermining the trust placed in the university's assessment processes. It is ethically unsound as it neglects the responsibility to ensure fairness for all candidates. A further incorrect approach, which is to consult with the faculty member's direct supervisor for an informal resolution, bypasses the formal governance structures designed to ensure impartiality and accountability. While informal resolutions can sometimes be effective, in matters concerning examination integrity, a structured and documented process is essential to maintain objectivity and prevent the appearance of favoritism or undue influence. This approach risks compromising the independence of the review process. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core ethical and regulatory principles at play, such as fairness, integrity, and due process. This is followed by gathering all relevant facts and evidence, consulting applicable university policies and guidelines, and then evaluating potential courses of action against these principles and policies. The chosen course of action should be the one that best upholds the integrity of the institution and ensures a fair outcome for all stakeholders. Question 19. Investigation of potential revenue generation strategies for Ambo University. A critical review of current admissions processes is being considered. The university administration is exploring ways to enhance financial resources while upholding the integrity and fairness of its academic admissions. Which of the following approaches best aligns with both ethical fundraising practices and efficient operational management within the context of university admissions? Option A. Increase application fees significantly to generate immediate revenue without a concurrent review of the admissions process. Option B. Develop a tiered admission system where higher application fees or donations grant preferential consideration for admission. Option C. Introduce a premium fast-track application service for a substantial fee, separate from the standard admissions evaluation. Option D. Conduct a thorough review and optimization of existing admissions workflows and criteria to identify efficiencies and potential cost savings without compromising fairness or academic standards. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review and optimization of existing admissions workflows and criteria to identify efficiencies and potential cost savings without compromising fairness or academic standards. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's immediate need for resources with the ethical obligation to ensure fair and transparent admissions processes. The pressure to secure funding can create a temptation to overlook or compromise established procedures. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic integrity and the university's reputation while exploring legitimate avenues for financial support. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review and optimization of existing admission processes to identify inefficiencies and areas for improvement that do not compromise fairness or academic standards. This aligns with the university's overarching goal of efficient operation and resource management. Specifically, it necessitates a thorough examination of application processing, selection criteria, and communication protocols to streamline workflows and potentially reduce administrative costs without impacting the quality or equity of admissions. This proactive, process-oriented strategy respects the integrity of the admissions system and avoids any perception of impropriety in fundraising efforts. Incorrect approach is analysis, focusing solely on increasing application fees without a corresponding review of the admissions process is an ethically questionable approach. It places a disproportionate financial burden on prospective students without demonstrating a commitment to improving the value or efficiency of the application experience. This could be perceived as exploitative and may deter qualified applicants, ultimately harming the university's long-term recruitment goals. Targeting specific donor groups for preferential admission consideration, even if framed as a fundraising strategy, fundamentally undermines the meritocratic principles of university admissions. This approach introduces bias and compromises the fairness and objectivity of the selection process, violating ethical standards of equal opportunity and academic integrity. It could lead to legal challenges and severe reputational damage. Implementing a fast-track admission process for a fee, separate from the standard admissions criteria, creates a two-tiered system that is inherently unfair. This approach suggests that financial capacity can override academic merit or other relevant qualifications, eroding the credibility of the university's admission standards and potentially admitting less qualified candidates. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university administration should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct, transparency, and adherence to established policies. When faced with financial pressures, the first step is to conduct a comprehensive internal review of existing operations to identify areas for optimization and efficiency gains. This should be followed by exploring fundraising strategies that are aligned with the university's mission and values, ensuring that such efforts do not compromise the integrity of academic programs or admissions. Open communication with stakeholders, including faculty, staff, and prospective students, is crucial to maintain trust and accountability. Question 20. Market research demonstrates that prospective students are increasingly aware of the importance of academic integrity. As an invigilator for the Ambo University entrance exam, you are responsible for ensuring a fair and secure testing environment. During the examination, you observe a candidate exhibiting behavior that appears to be a potential violation of the exam's academic integrity policy. What is the most appropriate course of action to uphold the university standards and ensure a just outcome? Option A. Implement significantly more stringent security measures for all candidates for the rest of the exam, such as confiscating all personal belongings and increasing surveillance, without specific evidence against any individual. Option B. Immediately and publicly accuse the candidate of cheating and remove them from the examination hall. Option C. Ignore the behavior, assuming it is a misunderstanding or not a serious infraction, to avoid disrupting the exam for other candidates. Option D. Discreetly observe the candidate's behavior throughout the remainder of the exam, and if further evidence of a violation emerges, follow the university's established protocol for reporting and investigation. The correct answer is B. Immediately and publicly accuse the candidate of cheating and remove them from the examination hall. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their best work and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead students to seek an unfair advantage, making it crucial for invigilators to maintain a secure and ethical testing environment. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for vigilance with the respectful treatment of all candidates. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent communication strategy. This means clearly informing all candidates about the rules and regulations regarding academic integrity, including the consequences of any violations, before the examination commences. This establishes a clear understanding of expectations and deters potential misconduct. Furthermore, it requires diligent observation during the exam to identify any suspicious behavior without being overly intrusive, and to follow the established university procedures for reporting and investigating any suspected breaches. This upholds the principles of fairness, honesty, and the integrity of the examination process, aligning with Ambo University's commitment to academic standards. An incorrect approach would be to ignore suspicious behavior, assuming it is not happening or not significant enough to warrant intervention. This fails to uphold the university's duty to ensure a fair and equitable examination for all candidates and undermines the credibility of the entrance exam. Another incorrect approach is to confront a candidate publicly and accuse them of cheating without proper evidence or adherence to established procedures. This can lead to distress for the student, potential legal repercussions for the invigilator and the university, and a breach of natural justice principles. A third incorrect approach is to implement overly restrictive and intrusive measures that significantly disrupt the examination environment and cause undue stress to candidates, without a clear basis for such measures. This can create an atmosphere of distrust and negatively impact the candidate experience, potentially violating guidelines on fair examination conduct. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established university policies and ethical guidelines. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing the university's academic integrity policy and examination procedures. 2. Prioritizing clear, upfront communication of rules to all candidates. 3. Maintaining a state of alert observation, focusing on identifying patterns of behavior rather than individual assumptions. 4. Following a defined protocol for reporting and escalating suspected breaches, ensuring due process for any accused student. 5. Acting with professionalism and impartiality at all times.